Everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. Great to have you here. It is Monday. It is the 5th of June, and it is the Dennis Prager Show. Dennis back tomorrow, I think. I don't know. All I know is that I'm here, and I'm your fill-in Texas talk show buddy, Mark Davis, here at 6:60 a.m. The Answer in happening, thriving Dallas-Fort Worth. I have, in fact, just come off a vacation in Central Texas, just had some wonderful time surveying the scene here in the Lone Star State, talking to people about various things going on here, some of which you may be hip to, some of which you may know about. The impeachment of our Attorney General, Ken Paxton, the most famous, I think the most famous state Attorney General in these 50 United States. It's interesting how this plays into sort of a template of battles that you can find across the national landscape, of battles you can find between sort of hardcore grassroots conservatives and squishy moderates and rhinos. It's all being played out right here in the Lone Star State. I'm not going to burden you with all of that because we're doing a national show. We got 50 states in the District of Columbia and who knows what kind of worldwide audience on the Salem Radio Network and, of course, on the Salem News Channel. Thanks for watching the spectacle there at snc.tv. Again, I'm Mark Davis, glad to fill in for Dennis anytime they ask. I'm enormously pleased to be here, and here's how we can sort of set up shop for how we do business when I am here. Follow me on Twitter at Mark Davis, at M-A-R-K Davis, 1-8-PRAGER-776. You know about that. 1-8-PRAGER-776. And we'll be ready to do business. We'll talk about various things going on in the presidential race, the Republican field. Apparently nobody got a hold of Mike Pence to tell him that virtually no one is interested in him running for president. Are you? I mean, I'm really deadly serious here. And I know sort of why a bunch of, Chris Christie is getting in. Vivek. Listen, Vivek ain't going to be the nominee either. But here's where I set the bar. Tell me where you set the bar. 1-8-PRAGER-776. Follow me on Twitter at Mark Davis. Shoot me a question in there. Anything you want to do, because we have a lot of stuff to talk about. I want to, in fact, plumb the depths of the battle against wokeness today with you. The battle, because there are a lot of people who say that this battle against wokeness is a losing battle, that this is that it's just not productive. But I find that there aren't that many people who care about it. There aren't even that many Republicans who care about it. I would differ. I would differ broadly about that. Nikki Haley last night had a CNN town hall, and she, interestingly, she went after DeSantis, and it's intriguing that not everybody is coming after Trump. Almost nobody's coming after Trump. They figure they don't have to climb that mountain. It's like the old joke when you got five guys running and a bear is chasing all of them, and they say, we're never going to outrun this bear, and the guy says, I don't have to outrun the bear. I just need to outrun you, just because it's going to be Trump, somebody named Trump, and somebody not named Trump. That's how it's going to go. And I guess if the presumption is that Trump will obviously be there, will be when there are two people standing. I remember 2016. What did we have? That was crazy. We had the kids' table. Remember the kids' table debates? Positions 9 through 16 of guys that didn't quite have enough poll numbers, enough juice, enough whatever to be on the grown-up stage with the top 8 people who were running as the campaign got underway in 2015. And then we finally had the ability to cram everybody onto one stage. And then there were 8, and then there were 5, and then there were 4, and then there were 2. And then there were 2. It was Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. And after the Indiana primary, the very beginning of May, Trump beats Cruz, Cruz bows out, and then boom, boom, there we are. It's Trump moving forward. We're going to reach that point at some point, probably in May, if not April, depends, I don't know. It seems we'll reach that point in 2024. It'll be Trump and somebody Right now, it certainly looks like it's going to be Trump and DeSantis. And it is the riskiest thing. I'm not risky, but maybe dumb is to presume that like your own name, what's going to be happening 10 months from now, 11 months from now. Real people are still the better part of a half a year away. Real people are still the better part of a half year away from voting. And then we're really going to know. And I guess there'll be meaningful poll numbers. What has DeSantis been running for a few days? And a lot of people are saying, hey, DeSantis is running now, and Trump still has like a 20, 30-point lead. Well, of course he does. If DeSantis is going to catch Trump, and I have no idea whether he will, if DeSantis is going to catch Trump, it is going to be a slow climb. It will have to slowly occur to a lot of people who love President. Listen, I love, if you haven't heard me during this last stretch of all of this drama, I'm not pro or anti-Trump. I'm not pro or anti-DeSantis. In fact, I'm pro-Trump and pro-DeSantis. But what breaks the tie there? I'm pro-winning. Whether it's Joe Biden or whoever else the Democrat Party coughs up, we must win. And I know every election is the most important of our lifetime. Every single time, all the pundits come out and say, hey, it's the most important election of our lifetime. Well, I'm here to tell you next year, it's the most important election of our lifetime. And you know that it is. And the stakes just keep getting higher and higher and higher. They were hugely high in 2016 because we had to fend off Hillary. Thank God we dodged that cannonball. Now, after one term of Trump, things were better. I think maybe a lot of people got too complacent, got lazy, got whatever. And Biden won. I know. Or did he? I know, that's another talk show. Or this one if you want. We got time. Anyway, though, so here we are again. Now we've seen America has it on a plate. Here's how bad it can be. And it's bad. It's absolutely, steadfastly horrible. And so along come various Republican candidates to say, I can make it better. And by the way, every single one of them can. I mean, if we get some, we'll get, if Chris Sununu, moderate squish New Hampshire, winds up being our nominee, he's better than Biden. I mean, anybody is better than Biden in the Republican Party. But my bar is set a little higher. I'd like it for it to be an unapologetic, bold conservative. Silly me. I think I have a lot of company on that in the Republican Party. Trump is that proven commodity. DeSantis is that, a proven commodity in the state of Florida. So I'm going to do both these guys a little bit of a favor here for free. Campaign consultation from talk show host Mark Davis. They're going after each other for crazy stuff. So they occupy so much of the same ideological territory. The entire debate probably ought to be over style, electability, priorities, because every conservative should have huge appreciation for Donald Trump and huge appreciation for Ron DeSantis. But who do you want? Who do you think can win? Whom do you want to be president? Trump's best approach, and they're sitting there sniping at each other over COVID. They were both great on COVID. Nobody was perfect on COVID. As governors go, DeSantis was way ahead of the curve compared to a lot of Democrat governors and some Republican governors. And Trump, of course, was ahead of the curve compared to a whole lot of national leaders. So for them to be against each other on COVID is just stupid. Here's Trump's best path forward. Everything sucks now. I can make it better, and I can because I did it before. You want the things you want? Do you wish I were still president? You can have that. I'm the guy. I've done it. DeSantis is a great governor, but he hadn't done it before. I have. I'm a better known quantity. Vote for me. DeSantis's best argument is things were way better under Trump, but he can't win anymore. You can nominate him, and a Democrat will win. You want a better shot at winning? You want the Trump policies? And by the way, with a little more discipline and no more self-inflicted wounds or strangeness or drama, I'm your guy. And now he then is making a point that is, you don't know it like, 2 + 2 make 4, the electability issue, but it's something I think resonates with more than a few people. So how's that race going? How's various things going as we begin a new week? 1-8-PRAGER-776. Mark Davis in for Dennis. Grab a line and we'll be right with you. That's Dennis. I'm Mark Davis. And Dennis isn't back tomorrow. He's on a listener cruise for a good while moving forward. So they're having a great time. Dennis is having a great time. And we're going to have a great time today, as you will have with all the good army of folks often brought in to host various Dennis Prager shows. We are all enormously, enormously pleased and proud to be in for Dennis. A quick word about that as we hop onto instant calls and more thoughts from me about the scramble of news from over the weekend. 1-8-PRAGER-776, 1-8-PRAGER-776. All things Dennis at DennisPrager.com, and follow me on Twitter at Mark Davis, M-A-R-K Davis. There are a lot of shows out there, right? And I can't speak monolithically for everybody in the office, but everybody in the office, much less the office, if not the entire audience. I miss Rush so very, very much. I had the great pleasure and privilege of filling in for him from 2008 to 2012 when I worked at another radio station that carried him in the DFW market. And they were always so kind to me. And with his passing, there's so many people doing this for a living, and they do great. And here on the Salem Radio Network, please, with my personal friend Mike Gallagher and my lead-in show Hugh Hewitt and Dr. Gorka and Officer Tatum and just all the talented people who are doing so much good stuff. Dennis he always was, but now Dennis stands even more singularly as not just a voice of conservatism. There are a lot of voices of conservatism out there. Some of them have broadcast skills, but the cerebral value and the common sense value, a lot of people say they have common sense too, and many do. There is something, like when Dennis writes the Rational Bible. It's not just preaching to the converted, to pardon that term, but it's like, I'm going to use basic reason. A lot of what conservatives do, and we should, is selling conservatism to try to take people who are kind of on the fence, in the mushy middle, whatever, and try to say, hey, conservatism's better, voting Republican is better, so go do that. We may even snare an occasional liberal who wearies of the craziness of the Democrat Party these days. Dennis's approach is say, look, I'm just going to hit you with some facts. I'm just going to hit you with some things that truly are basic common sense. And if you believe these things, it's not like whether there should be more or less taxes, stronger or weaker borders, abortion rights or no abortion rights. Those are things that happen along the ideological spectrum. These are things like, how many genders are there? Has higher education been shot to hell? Various things that are simple yes or no answers that people of a wide variety of political proclivities will answer in the same way. And that's why, by the way, why I believe things do skew very well for Republicans in 24. I'm old enough to have the following memory. Get ready. 1968, I guess, and 1972. Nixon, and of course, there's a loaded topic, Richard Nixon, who I think was one of our most brilliant presidents and a deeply flawed man in a number of ways, as history has told. The secret of his huge victory, in 1968, all the Vietnam protests were at their peak. Democrats were beating each other over the head at their convention in Chicago, and we get to see a Democrat Chicago convention next year. 60-second timeout. It's not a meme. It was a picture. There were Barack and Michelle Obama standing at like a mile away from downtown Chicago. A beautiful shot across Lake Michigan. And it was like, we're proud, we're very pleased and proud to welcome the Democrats back to Chicago 2024. And somebody posted in a response, yeah, that ought to be a safe distance. Because they were clearly about 3-4 miles from downtown. But in 1968, American, Vietnam and everything else turmoil was at its peak. And Nixon won. How? How'd that happen? In 1972, it's not like we were done in Vietnam. 1972, he wins in a landslide. How did that happen? It was with a type of appeal that Republicans can offer today. That the world is crazy, the country is crazy, the Democrats are crazy, and we're not. Get it? World's crazy. We can fix that. Country's going crazy. Democrats are way crazy, and we're not. It's an approach that essentially says you may not agree with us about everything, but those people are insane. And I think that is something that any Republican nominee is going to be able to use. Is it a guarantee of victory? Nope, because you got to run a good campaign. Your positives have to outweigh your negatives, which gets us to the Trump quandary, I guess you could call it. If I knew, none of us has a crystal ball. Let's say I knew. All right, this will intrigue many of you because I get hit a lot for being kind of a stealth DeSantis, like I've made my choice, I'm just not telling you. Believe you me, when I do, I will. If I have, I would say. I've made clear that I believe that the DeSantis appeal, the prospect of having Trump-style policies with a kind of an internal discipline with fewer unforced errors and not as much drama and some of the stuff we had to get through in the era of Trump, albeit with great results, that's pretty appealing. But let's set this up. If I knew Trump would win, if I say you can have either Trump or DeSantis and either one of them will win. Either one of them will win. You know what? I got to think about this one. I think I have. I would take Trump because he is a proven quantity. And as I did during his first term, there'd be the occasional days of ridiculousness, the occasional days where people would call me and go, yeah, Mark, how can you support him now? It's like, policies, hello, because that's what's always mattered. Yeah, but he said something crazy about the size of his inauguration crowd, or he said something mean to somebody. The other day, he was flat out mean to Kayleigh McEnany. That's just a dumb thing to do. But is he singularly a guy who can step in and make the country better? Yep. Do I know it? Yep. Would I take it again? Yep. Well, Mark, then why aren't you all, full, MAGA Inc. right now? Because I don't know that he can win. There's some people who are saying he cannot. That's not me. Absolutely not me. I wouldn't say that at all. We may get a barometer. The first, by the time we're in February, we will have had a few, some caucuses, some primaries. The DeSantis thing had better be on fire by then, because if it's not, it ain't going to take flight in March. He's either going to be out of the box as a direct, plausible rival to Trump, or he's not. If he is, then game on, and maybe there's a third person up there who'll, maybe it'll be Chris Christie. I don't know. We'll take a look at some other people in the race as well. And your calls coming up next. Mark Davis in for Dennis. Stick around. Who could pass that up? Mark Davis in for Dennis today on this Monday, June 5. Glad you are here. 1-8-Prager-776 is the phone number. Let's put it to use, shall we? News from the weekend. That bizarre, tragic thing with a plane where the pilot passes out, hypoxia, I don't know what that was, freaked everybody out. Sonic booms as they scramble the jets out of Andrews, because you have to do that because you just never know. Various other things in the political developments of the weekend gone by, and other sort of conceptual things. Glad to take a look at things broadly or narrowly. 1-8-Prager-776. Follow me on Twitter at Mark Davis. Let's see what folks are thinking about as we enjoy this first full week of June. We are in Chicago. Hey, Ken, Mark Davis, in for Dennis. How are you, sir?
Mark, I am fine. Happy Monday. You're doing a great job so far, Mark.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Going just to your quick tribute to Rush, ditto to what you said. My sense regarding the nomination race between President Trump and Governor DeSantis is that if President Trump is the nominee, we might win. If Governor DeSantis is the nominee, we could win the popular vote and possibly up to 40 states. My caveat is that the nominee should pick either Senator Tim Scott or a woman as his running mate.
Let me dwell for a moment. But first of all, I think that is exact. I think that's totally plausible. I'd love to think Trump could win, but I don't know. I don't know that DeSantis can. I mean, I don't know if his candidacy will continue to be as fairly sharp as it has. But does DeSantis have a slightly better chance of winning a general than Trump does? I think so. You've touched on something that I actually wanted to get to later today, so let's do it right now. The wisdom of taking a Tim Scott, did you say Nikki Haley? Both of whom are fine. And neither of whom am I taking as some kind of identity politics affirmative action pick. But do you think that just for optics, those pesky optics, presuming our nominee is going to be a white man, do you think that it's probably, all other things being equal, a good idea to have a running mate who is not white, not male, or both?
Absolutely, Mark. I think that if you think about Tim Scott or Governor Haley on the stump, and you think of either one of them poking fun at Harris and Biden at every opportunity, I think that's fantastic. I think Tim Scott could just light up the media when they attempt to make him the black face of white supremacy, which they are absolutely going to do.
I know they will, and thanks. Hey, real quick, anybody's name occurring to you as that black face of white supremacy quote comes back into our lives? Anybody deploy that in recent memory and recent history? Anybody who we might know in this neighborhood, walking the halls of this radio network? Listen, if we need, and just pardon the way this sounds, if we're looking for a black guy, how about Larry Elder? And it's funny because I don't want to be looking for a black guy, and I don't want to be looking for a woman. I want to be looking for the best people, irrespective of what I call the pigment and the plumbing, right? Thing is, and I mentioned the pesky optics, as I said, what I mean by that is that if anything that makes it easier for us to win is a good thing. Anything that makes it harder for us to win is a challenging thing. So far, so good. So if there's, in an election where tens of millions of people are going to be voting, if there's 100,000 people, if there's 10,000 people in one state who are kind of on the mushy middle, in a Wisconsin, in a Pennsylvania, in a, whatever, any other purple state, and they take a look and I don't know how any human being can look at Republicans and Democrats and go, seems like about the same to me. Are you kidding me? But let's say somebody has some conservatism in them, some liberalism in them, and let's say there's some wonderfully diverse, ticket on the other side, and we're running a couple of white guys, and if anybody holds that against us, that's a problem. And so for that reason, does it make it advisable for us to see if there's a woman or person of color, and there's Nikki Haley to say, hey, hi, bingo, I'm both. I'm not against it. I'm not going to go. When they went for Kamala Harris, that was a total identity politics pick. She is the running mate only because she was a woman of some accomplishment, senator, legal jobs in it's not like she was, doing nothing for a living, but she vaulted to the top because of pigment and plumbing. We have a deep bench and we wouldn't have to do that. Your thoughts, please. Mark Davis, 1-8-Prager-776. In for Dennis, back in a moment. Firearms and freedom, inextricably linked, especially in this free country. How big a deal do you think Second Amendment's going to be? And it's kind of funny. We get so deep into the woke stuff, and we should. We get deep into, debt limit obsessions, which we needed to. Is everybody good with that, how that debt limit thing worked out? I'm lukewarm, and pardon how jaded and cynical this sounds, but if there's a deal, how do you conduct life when this is true? You ready? If there's a deal reached, so McCarthy and Biden hashing things out, left, right, up and down, and ultimately Schumer says he's okay with it. The moment Chuck Schumer says he's okay with it, I instantly default to the feeling that there must be something wrong with it. So does that mean that I kind of wanted a default? I will tell you that the fears of it were enormously exaggerated. I don't want a default. That's not my favorite thing. But you know what I might like even less? Kicking the can further down the road with more namby-pamby, Casper milquetoast, not real fiscal sanity the kind of policies that have gotten us where we are for these many, many decades. Add that as a layer, if you will. In fact, you may feel free to consider this quite the multi-topic Monday. Things like this tend to break out when I show up, both locally and nationally. It is my stamp of character here in DFW on 660 AM The Answer, where I'm the happy morning host. Virtually anything can come up, and I'm always glad to operate in that environment. So we got a lot of political stuff, a lot of cultural stuff. So let's just see where you want to go, coming off a busy weekend, wherever you might be. We are in, let's roll to Phoenix, Arizona. Glenn, Mark Davison for Dennis. How are you, sir? Happy Monday.
Good morning, sir. So I wanted to piggyback off the conversation that I had last week. After the call was done, you elaborated a little bit more, but I couldn't rebuttal what you had said. And I'm the caller last week that brought up the differentiation, or I wanted you to differentiate between the terms that you always use in Sebastian Gorka about America turning into a police state. And then you elaborated on what you believed was the differentiation, and you went something to the effect of when you use the word or the terms police state, that you are speaking about the feds or the federal government. You remember saying something?
Okay, Glenn,
to that effect?
we got to do something for the audience and for me, because number one, if it was last week, it wasn't me. There's number one. Number two, so you may be operating on a complete. Glad to talk to you about anything.
It could have been 2 weeks ago.
Okay, but I'm trying. But a police state discussion is not something that I've done here or anywhere recently. I mean, I was here pretty recently, so let's try to drill down a little better on what we might have talked about. Why don't you tell me something that either I've said or somebody has said that you disagree with, and I'll tell you where I actually am, and we'll see if we can make some progress.
Okay, so I had made the comment that people like you and Sebastian Gorka always use the term, in the example
Stop. There's clarity point number one. I don't. So call Seb, and I love him, and on a point where he might be making it, I might well agree, but it's you and me right now. So what has someone, anyone, any conservative, what has anybody said about it? What is a police state invocation of that term that they've made that you have disagreed with?
Well, like, for instance, I hear that term being used a lot when the feds raided Mar-a-Lago, that those were police state tactics being used against Trump.
Okay. Let me hone down my 30 seconds of my actual views, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree. We currently have under Biden the weaponization of law enforcement against conservatives. A huge double standard in how conservatives are treated versus liberals, the stigmatization of parents showing up at school boards, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I view that as a massive problem. The FBI has a massive political bias problem. Law enforcement, the halls of law enforcement, the corridors of law enforcement need to be free of political bias, and they are not. Christopher Wray, the current FBI director, is a snake. He believes that all the people who believe there's an FBI bias problem is just a perceptual problem. I think he's wrong. I think that law enforcement is shot full of political bias these days. Do you agree or disagree?
I do 100%. So let me give you my perspective. So where I come from, because I come from a family of Leos, we call them Leos, law enforcement officers. That can be used for a person that is working at the corrections facility, a highway patrolman, an FBI agent, a local police officer. So what I'm saying in America is the reason why America is turning into a police state, and I'm speaking about the federal government and the local, is that in all of these instances, be it Mar-a-Lago, where the FBI raids a former president, be it when the governor, Gavin Newsom, shuts down the beaches and dispatches 200 highway patrol officers. And the reason, at the end of the day, the reason why I believe America's turning into a police state is because the police, the Leos, the law enforcement apparatus that we have set up knows nothing except carrying out orders. There doesn't seem anywhere across the country where you have a concerted effort where these people are pushing back. Law enforcement is good for one thing, carrying out orders like the Gestapo. And that's what I'm afraid of.
But here's what gets tricky. If you've studied history, and I hope you have, you're probably aware of some actual police states. So calling us one, if it's a rhetorical thing, okay, but quite literally, it's just not. And it's a tall order to ask a law enforcement officer to disobey a direct order. I mean, if you've got Leos all over the family, you know full well, what a high bar that needs to be. It can't just be some political, gripe that the officer has against an order he gets. It's got to be so stone cold improper. So it's going to be tricky. But
a man named, you're familiar with Dan?
I got time. I love it. We got somewhere. We actually got somewhere, and I appreciate it. And give me a buzz anytime. Do you know a guy named means I got like another 3 minutes of call when I've got like 20 seconds of time. So, okay. Hey, I said multi-topic Monday, didn't I? Here's how it sounds. 1-8-Prager-776. Glad to do it. Stuff on your mind. I'll certainly share a bunch of things that are on mine. And you'll find those on my Twitter feed. They're at Mark Davis, M-A-R-K Davis. And right here on the Dennis Prager Show, where I'm happy to be filling in. 1-8-Prager-776. Be right back. Speaking of the Supreme Court, hey, everybody, once again, wrapping up hour number 1 here. Mark Davis in for Dennis Prager. 1-8-Prager-776. Remember what a big deal the Supreme Court was as Trump was running? Because obviously we had the Scalia passing and various other things going on. We'd better be talking some Supreme Court and not letting Joe Biden or whoever, as I've said, the Democrats cough up in 2024, make these next Supreme Court picks. Because Clarence Thomas, not a spring chicken. Sam Alito is ain't exactly 50 years old either. We got a lot of young, fresh folks coming in, but So I tell you what, let's do here real quick. Let me do one thing, and then I've got one more seed I want to plant for the ensuing conversation. I'm going to sit tight on calls for 1 second because I'll be done with the hour here in like a minute and a half, and I don't want to give anybody short shrift. So 1-8-Prager-776. We'll spread our ideological and topical wings and just have a ball. Remember the last time you got a quote-unquote free phone? Starts out feeling great, and then come, bam, activation fees. 3-4 line requirements. The binding contract. The bloom comes off the rose a little bit, doesn't it? Don't fall for that again. Only Pure Talk gives you a free 5G Samsung Galaxy phone without the feeling that you've been duped. Sign up for Pure Talk's unlimited talk, text, and unlimited data plan with mobile hotspot for just $55 a month and get a 5G Samsung Galaxy for free. Now that's how you do a free phone. Unlimited everything, fraction of the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, all on America's most dependable 5G network. Look at there. Switch to Pure Talk, the wireless company we're proud to stand behind because they're proud to stand behind us. Dial pound 250 and say Dennis Prager to get a free Samsung Galaxy when you sign up for unlimited talk, text, and unlimited data. Again, dial pound 250 and say Dennis Prager. And Pure Talk will be right there for you. Wireless for Americans by Americans. Okay, you ready? We're having enough fun right now. I got like 7 or 8 topics on the griddle. Can I pour one more out and see what happens with this? You ready? Do you really think Joe Biden's going to be the nominee? Are we really running against Joe Biden? Every indication is that we are. He's announced. He seems to be still upright and taking nourishment. But I don't know. Who was I listening to? It was one of the Hewitt guests this very morning, I think. I don't know, maybe Sully Nizito, her wonderful visit with Hugh Hewitt each morning. Said that she didn't think it was going to be Biden or Trump. Well, the Republican thing we've talked about already. But is Biden just going to pull, as Hugh referred to it, pull an LBJ and somewhere around March just say, I ain't running anymore? And if so, then who are we talking to? Mark Davis. Talking to me. Filling in for Dennis. Be right back. It is the Monday Dennis Prager Show. Glad you are here. Mark Davis in for Dennis from big thriving Dallas-Fort Worth, where I'm the always happy morning show host at 6:60 a.m. The Answer. Glad you're here. So we got calls loaded of people who want to talk a little bit about the growing 2024 GOP field. Does anybody really need to be running other than Trump and DeSantis? They may. Let me tell you the test that I apply, and maybe yours is different. First of all, free country, anybody can run. Do you know, and I had my little bit, well, this is not tongue-in-cheek, I'm kind of serious. Nobody got Mike Pence apparently announces this week. And that's the reaction I expected. I mean, God bless him. He's an incredible man, a wonderful husband and father, a great public servant. And then you can drag him for January 6th a little bit if you want to. There's nothing he was going to be able to do. I got nothing but good things to say about Mike Pence. Not a fighter. And you got to have a fight. We have got to have a fighter. I love Tim Scott. Not a fighter. Nikki Haley might have some fighter in her. Her CNN town hall last night, not bad. The going after DeSantis thing, all these people, all these rivals going after DeSantis for Disney, are y'all just crazy? Don't y'all know that the vast majority of conservatives absolutely love going after DeSantis going after Disney? Oh, here you go. Here's something we can do this hour. Because one thing I mentioned at the close of the last hour is Biden really going to be the nominee? We're sitting here all caught up in the notion of, will it be Trump? Will it be DeSantis? Could somebody like a Larry Elder, a Tim Scott, a Chris Christie, a Vivek, who's just pretty brilliant every time he does anything. Big fan of Vivek. Is he going to be the nominee? I don't think so. Might he be running mate material? You don't get two white guys then, if that's important, and it might be. But you got to, part of the equation is who are you running against? Would you think that Biden would be easy to beat? That's probably a mistake we could make because you would, but I just have a two-word answer to that, and that's John Fetterman. I've had what has now been attached to me, the disembodied head observation, because I have famously said, I've said it locally, I may have said it nationally, and I'll say it, if not, I'll say it nationally now. I would vote for a disembodied Republican head over any Democrat. And here's why. Because it's a Democrat. Every idea they have is going to be terrible. With your disembodied Republican head, at least somebody can roll the head in, have it, supposedly vote in some seemingly conservative way. It's going to be better than a Democrat. So, yes, I'm being facetious in part with a hyperbolic, exaggerated example. But the point being, so Biden's 112 years old. So what? He's the Democrat. And there will be people who will crawl on broken glass and, walk through fire to prevent Trump or DeSantis from becoming president. It's about the policies, much more than the guy. Now, to some extent, it's about the guy. That's why character matters. That's why likability can matter. That's why a style of campaigning can be helpful. It helps to be under 90, these days. That's a good thing. You'll hear a lot about a new generation of leadership. A new generation of leadership. Yeah, people actually born, since the Korean War. So these things do matter. And for that reason, maybe the Democrats are looking at this and saying, while Biden is what he is, and virtually every Democrat would loyally come in and back him and vote for him, that maybe if we do have somebody who is not cognitively impaired, somebody who is not 80-something, that maybe we could do better. Maybe we could do better. Well, like who? Gavin Newsom? Tied around the anchor that is the disaster that is California? Really? Does Kamala then jump in? Does even Democrats don't want her? Is the intel we supposedly get? The very curious case of RFK Jr. What is this guy up to? I confess to being fascinated with Bobby Kennedy's son. Are we at the anniversary? Is tomorrow? Wow. Today or tomorrow? Was he shot today and died tomorrow in 1968? Talked a little about 1968 last hour. I remember that. I was 10. Dr. King had just been killed a few weeks earlier. And I remember going to my mom and dad. I was growing up in the suburbs of D.C. My dad was working at the Pentagon and the Air Force, and Mom was home taking care of me. Thank you, Mom. I just kind of said, what the heck is going on? What is going on in the world? And on this date at the Ambassador Hotel, Bobby Kennedy had just won the California primary. He was going to be the nominee. You talk about some chaos theory. Would Nixon have even won in 1968 if he was running against Bobby Kennedy? Maybe, but I don't know. And then all kinds of things. Oh, then there's no Watergate. Then there's no Ford. With Ford, is there Carter? With Carter, is there no Carter? Is there Reagan? You'll get a headache. But bottom line being, in RFK Jr., here's a guy with a really interesting legacy. Like JFK, a Democrat, but not a bug-eyed, crazed leftist. RFK Jr. is actually right about a couple of things. He knows how many genders there are. Some conservatives are fond of RFK Jr. on vaccines. Yeah, he was not a big fan of COVID authoritarianism. That's because RFK Jr. is a stone cold across the board anti-vaxxer. So you can like or not like that. I find that there are more Republicans and more conservative TV shows interested in RFK Jr. than there are actual Democrats interested in RFK Jr. So I don't know. So who might we actually be running against? Well, I don't know. That's what we're talking about. All this on a busy multi-topic Monday. Let's go to some folks. 1-8-PRAGER-776, 1-8-PRAGER-776. We are in Westminster, California. And George, that is you. Mark Davison for Dennis. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. The question is, how do we get all the people that are Republicans to train their guns on the Democrats? The Democrats have ruined our reputation. We need to ruin theirs.
And that time will come, or the time is now. Your point is solid, and I think one of the smartest things DeSantis can do is say, look, I'm not going to spend my time trashing other Republicans. I'm going to talk about how my presidency will be better than Biden. But let me ask you this: this is kind of what the primary season is for. Here comes Mike Pence for some reason. Here comes Chris Christie for some reason. Vivek is out there. Trump and DeSantis are out there. This is when the Republicans all make the arguments against each other that I'm better than this guy to be the Republican nominee. You can see how that's necessary, right?
Yes, but I'm talking about the down ticket as well, because I work part-time for a Republican House member for a while, and nobody down ticket ends up taking the Democrats to the cleaners.
I hear this a lot, and that must and you're right, and everybody who says it is right. And thank you. Here in Texas, just the example I've been talking about all morning before this, our Attorney General Ken Paxton is about to be impeached, has been impeached, about to go on trial in the Senate here sometime this summer, and it appears to be a political witch hunt. It appears to be just a vendetta, and it appears to be the battle lines of squish establishmentarianism in the Republican Party up against the bold grassroots whom they resent and hate. In this Republican primary, I have no problem with in any Republican primary at any level for people saying, you know what, that person is less conservative than I am, and here's why. And then in return, that other person might say that person is too extreme, and here's why. I think there's a way to do that. You know, if you get somebody like Chris Sununu, governor of New Hampshire, into this race, there'll be plenty of room to do that with him, because he's just not on board for battling the woke poisons at all. And I think there's a way to do that and do it constructively. But ultimately, the gentleman's instincts are on point. That for whatever amount of time any Republican spends talking about his or her rivals, the most amount of time should be, here's why I'm the best to go up against the Democrats. Be right back. Anything from the good people of Regnery will serve you well. Anything they have out now is a good idea. I might send you to a couple of things that I've done for them over the years. In 2016, every word still a classic. Little thing called Upside Down, how the left turns right into wrong, truth into lies, good into bad. That's a lot of subtitle. Just do Mark Davis Upside Down there at regnery.com. That was from 2016, right as Trump was in his ascendancy. It's kind of a handy conversational guide for, if you got liberal friends, liberal family members, how to argue constructively with good humor and goodwill, which we don't have nearly enough of today. So that's Upside Down. That's my Regnery offering in 2016. And if you want a little taste of Texas, I did a little thing in 2014 called Lone Star America, how Texas can save our country. People have been noticing for a long time that Texas is conservatively run, so everybody's tripping over themselves to move here. Thank you. We'd like to check those voting patterns as you arrive. DeSantis said something about Florida the other day that I rather enjoyed. He said, I kind of like the people we have. I mean, growth is lovely. Every governor likes to crow about, we just poached some other business from failing California, which is wonderful, economically promising. But yeah, as all these waves of people come in, especially here to Texas, we always wonder, everybody's trying to turn Texas purple. Is this an infiltration of some type? Anyway, Lone Star America and Upside Down from your humble substitute host, Mark Davis, at regnery.com. If you enjoy them, if you don't enjoy them, tell me. And if you enjoy them, tell everybody else. All right, 1-8-PRAGER-776. 1-8-PRAGER-776. Let's do some phone calls. I've laid out a bunch of topics. Let's see what's on everybody's mind. Let's go to City of Brotherly Love. We're in Philly. Stephen, Mark Davis in for Dennis. How are you doing?
Mark, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Well, Bobby Kennedy Jr., who I particularly didn't like very much, I think he's seen the light. I think he's probably aware that his father was most likely also killed by the CIA, that Sirhan was, a CIA plant. They used him. They put him away, or they gave him, or they took a guy and gave him the opportunity to do it. But he knows for sure that our own country, our own leaders killed his uncle. There's literally
okay.
No
Careful. Well, no, careful. When you get no, he doesn't know for sure. He has a healthy suspicion, and I think
everybody knows for sure now.
And no, they don't. The words have meaning. Is there a healthy suspicion about CIA involvement? Sure. Is it plausible? Sure. But just so ride with that, and RFK Jr. is thoroughly convinced of that. But words have meaning, and this is not something that we know we know 2 + 2 being 4. Right.
The vaccine situation. Myself, our family, our kids will never be vaccinated again for anything. Now look at the flu vaccine.
Okay, whoa. We'll never be vaccinated. Has this been your position for a long time, or did the COVID oddities?
I just like everything else. I believe that the left corrupted, I guess, our medical profession. It's corrupted our legal profession. I mean, look at the flu vaccine. Look at the flu vaccine. How convenient is it that they get to come out with a new vaccine every year?
I know.
And who pays for it? Who pays for it?
But does that mean that it? But does that mean it doesn't work? Does that mean it's bad? Suddenly
it's
taking
ridiculous.
this.
It's garbage.
Okay.
They've been just as thoroughly corrupted as everyone else in this country is.
If you went to your doctor, do you have an actual doctor?
Yes.
If you went to your doctor and said, I am so repelled by the ridiculousness of what happened with COVID and I'll actually finish the question. If you went to your doctor and said, I am so repelled by what happened with all the COVID ridiculousness and the authoritarianism and the bad science and vaccine suspicions that I and my family will never be vaccinated for anything ever again, what would your doctor say?
Well, I've pretty much already said that, because when I brought our kids,
and what did he say?
It was a female doctor who was telling me with a mask on, convincing me that our children needed to be vaccinated for COVID. And I told her,
okay.
Are you insane? I said, are you insane? Why would you do that?
might be time to shop for a new doctor. Well, I had to ask. The reason let's get into a little bit of basic logic, okay? It is proper and principled to be, as I phrased to the gentleman, sufficiently repelled by the weaponization of bad science in the furtherance of a vaccine that simply was not what it was originally pitched to be. If we got the vaccine, we just weren't going to get COVID. Well, how long did that last? Right now, sitting here in June of 2023, and I got Moderna and the booster, I absolutely believe that there is plenty of basis to assert that, I had COVID twice. I've had it twice. That I may well have not got, and it was a walk in the park. It was like a bad cold. Could it have been worse if I'd been unvaccinated? Maybe. I think that's a plausible belief that I have. You may differ. But boy, did they jam this down our throats. And boy, were the mandates wrong. And boy, did they say things about it at the front end that were disproven later on. So there's a huge jumble of dishonesty there that should properly repel you. Should it make you so jaded and so cynical that you now don't want to hear anything about any vaccination for anything for you or your children for the rest of all of your natural lives? That seems harsh. That seems so here's my, and this will differ from person to person. How about taking things case by case? Let's say, because they're shocking though it may be, something may arise for which there is a vaccine in the future. Nobody may be hosing us about it. There may not seem to be quite the pernicious profit motive for it, because that's the one thing that I just can't get past. The government mandating something, on board for private companies mandating something, and it doesn't hardly cost anybody anything. Massive government power, government spending, government overreach. But let's say in the future there's some malady that comes down the pike, and God bless everybody that's in R&D in the world of big pharma. Big pharma gets slapped around a lot, and sometimes they deserve it. You know what else big pharma deserves? Our gratitude every day for saving countless lives. That's what I mean by case by case. Next time we're involved in, and please don't let it be another pandemic, although there'll probably be one of those too. But I would hope that people wouldn't take their righteous indignation, their revulsion at what happened to us during COVID, and make them, stone cold anti-vax for everything for the rest of your life. So, Mark Davis in for Dennis. Do stick around. Good advice from Dennis. Of course, actually, anything Dennis says is good advice for anybody about anything. That's the value of this show. Just trying to keep that standard alive here on a one-day basis. Mark Davis in for Dennis. Happy morning host at 6:60 a.m. The Answer here in Dallas-Fort Worth. Follow me on Twitter at Mark Davis, M-A-R-K Davis. Shoot me any comment you like along there, and I'll take a look at those during the breaks. Or better yet, call and we can actually talk about things. They're at 1-8-PRAGER-776, 1-8-PRAGER-776. And, of course, for all things Dennis, go to DennisPrager.com. All right, let's see here. Let's see what's going on the telephone line, see what people want to do. And we are in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Gary, Mark Davis in for Dennis. How are you doing?
Hi, Mark.
Hey.
I'm wondering about a local radio program that I heard this morning, of course, discussing all things primary, Republican, Democrat, who's running, who's not. Mm-hmm. The comment was, if Joe Biden ran as president with Barack Obama as the vice president, commenting that there seems to be no exclusion for a former president to fulfill that role.
All right, let me hop into a little pesky Constitution stuff, and I may need to do it at the next break. There's a reason why Obama cannot run again himself, because he's been elected twice. I believe there is a subplot in there that is that no one ineligible to the presidency can be vice president, or so that would either mean no, he can't either. I mean, if he were to be vice president and then Biden, and forgive me, dies, he would not be elected a third time, so there'd be no violation there. But if indeed, and I will do my homework in the very next commercial break, if indeed it is true that no one ineligible to the presidency, and maybe they mean, not being 35 years old or not being a natural born citizen. Oh, here we go with that again. But if indeed your time limit is up in terms of your number of elections you've run, it would seem that would be a disqualifier. But I'll check.
Yeah, well, they were trying to reflect upon the 22nd Amendment, and which is what negates that.
I have good news. I have good news. You want to know what the good news is? It's a fun thing. Barack Obama's interest in being vice president of the United States is precisely zero. It's less than zero. It's a negative number. What you got to worry about is whether his wife wants to be president, because that is scary.
Well, yes, I agree, but still, many agree that, or seem to agree, or think that Barack is running the presidency right now. But,
I don't know. You know what? He's too busy windsurfing with Richard Branson. Barack Obama ain't doing nothing but hanging out, living his best life. Barack Obama's interest. And listen, did Barack Obama enjoy power? He sure did. If he could run for a third time, would he think about it? I think he would. Yeah, I don't think he has much interest in being in the bubble with his wife. I just don't think so. Barack Obama's interests in having some levers of power right now, whatever those would be, he ain't messing with it, because this is probably part of human nature. If there was some Republican, figure, some Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, if you're really running things, you want people to know it, especially if you have an ego the size of Obama's. And I don't even say that as great criticism, because Lord knows Trump has an ego. Everybody running for office, to paraphrase George Carlin about being a stand-up comedian, part of the job is, hey, dig me. And Obama ain't doing nothing except just, living his best life and windsurfing with Richard Branson. 60 seconds on Michelle, though. There is no evidence that she has interest in running, and I really believe that in a married couple that nobody should run for president if the spouse objects vociferously. I just think that's bad chemistry. It's bad karma. It's being a bad spouse. I don't think Barack Obama's has any interest in coming back into the bubble and not being president so that he can be first gentleman. No, please, Lord, let that be true. Because as silly and stupid as this country is, and with Michelle Obama's crazy star quality, deserved or not, that would be a huge, huge problem. Trust me on this, and let's join together in prayer that it does not happen. Who else do they got? Mark Davis in for Dennis. It is the Dennis Prager Show for this Monday, 5th of June, 2023. Mark Davis filling in. Glad to be here from Big DFW, where I do the morning show on 660 AM The Answer. And I always say there's no better prep for a given day's Dennis Prager Show than doing my own show for 3 hours first thing in the morning. So I did that, and we were all filled up with all kinds of vim and vigor from the issues of the weekend gone by. Glad to be playing all those out with you here at 1-8-PRAGER-776, 1-8-PRAGER-776. A lot of talk about the Republican field. Some talk about the Democrat field, if there is to be one. The Democrat Party is such a protection racket for Biden that they're not even going to have debates. Who was it? Oh God, what forgotten actor? James Van Der Beek, and God love him. That's fine. If you are an actor and your career is largely evaporated and you want to get back in the news for a couple of days, just gripe about Democrats for some reason, and Fox News will play it 47 times. And at least people go, I remember him. Ask Scott Baio. Anyway, though, and I love all people. 1-8-PRAGER-776, 1-8-PRAGER-776. But there won't be any debates. And some could say, well, what is the Democrat National Committee's job? Is it to Is it to offer up a full panoply of potential rivals to Joe Biden, or form a circle of protection around Joe Biden? I would say that the Democrat Party doesn't operate in fealty to Joe Biden, but rather their first obligation would be to Democrat voters, some of whom might think he's too damn old, just to paraphrase. So let's say we had an incumbent Republican president. Would I want that Republican president on a debate stage with Republican rivals? Absolutely. He's so good, let him fend them off. So anyway, 1-8-PRAGER-776, 1-8-PRAGER-776. We are in Atlanta, and Melody, that is you. Welcome. Mark Davison for Dennis. How are you doing today?
Hi, thank you very much. I'm fine,
Sure.
thank you. So I heard your earlier comment about, and I want to start out by saying I moved to Atlanta from New York 28 years ago. I was a strong liberal. Even when I moved to Atlanta, I was. And I have, after this first term of Obama, completely changed. A strong Trump supporter.
Congratulations.
And, they were never this crazy. They weren't this crazy. So, it wasn't, I evolved a little bit, but they went nuts. And that's kind of why I called in, because, I was too young to vote when John Kennedy was running, but I was old enough to vote when Bobby Kennedy was running and the tragedy of his assassination. So I don't really follow Bobby Kennedy that much, except I am on his email list because...
You mean his son, RFK Jr.?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, right. Bobby Kennedy Jr. Right, exactly.
He doesn't really go by Bobby, but okay, go to you.
Well, for those of us that, feel comfortable with him. Oh, he doesn't? Okay, because his father did. His father did go by Bobby.
Yes.
But, okay, Robert Kennedy Jr. All right. So, and he does have this organization called the Child's Health Defense, and he's also been against Fauci for years. And, there's a lot about him. And he's an environmentalist attorney. So, I'm pretty, even though I'm a Republican, I do follow him. And I think what he does try to do is very honorable and whatever. Your comment about him being, I don't know if it was your comment or what you were stating, was he was just on Newsmax the other night, and I heard it for the second time because it happened to have been a replay. I didn't realize it. He is not anti-vaccine. What his statement was that he's against vaccines that have not been properly vetted. Passed through the FDA or whatever, organizations have to do a certain number of testing or whatever. Now, I understand Trump wanted, and I'm not against, I personally never got the vaccine, and I personally never got COVID, and I am well over the age of what was the recommended one, and I have an underlying condition, and I never got COVID and never got the vaccine. I was not buying this. There were too many stories about the side effects. But like you said, as I was holding on, not regarding Robert Kennedy Jr.'s statement, but, would I eliminate all vaccines? No. I took the shingles vaccine. That was I actually took it twice because there was an earlier version, and that wasn't as effective as the second one. I took both of those. My doctor wanted me to take that pneumococcal thing. I was like, I did the research. No, not going to do that. So
that sounds like the case by case basis, which sounds like a logical thing to do. Let me ask you something. Since you and I are both old enough to remember, I wasn't old enough to vote, but I certainly remember my parents, who were both Republicans. I remember them kind of giving Bobby Kennedy some credit for a couple, because that was back when Democrats would occasionally say somewhat sensible things every once in a while. Do you think? Yes. Do you think that Bobby Kennedy, who was killed 55 years ago, shot 55 years ago today, do you believe that he could have or would have beaten Nixon in 68?
Well, it really goes back a ways and whatever, but I think he could have. I definitely do. I do. There is talk that says that if John Kennedy was running today, he would be on his stand.
Oh,
he would be considered a Republican.
He'd be a center-right Republican. Absolutely would. You bet. Because we don't make Democrats like that anymore. We do not make Democrats like that anymore. Melody, thank you. I appreciate it very, very much. How many times have you heard that? almost asked her, but I think she pretty well laid it out eloquently herself. There are so many people who feel, I didn't leave the party left me. It's funny, Democrats who feel that way. There are some Trump-hating Republicans who feel that way too. Yeah, guess what? Party didn't leave you. You went nuts because you hate Trump's guts. This does lead me to a story that comes off the weekend. Was Joe Manchin on Meet the Press? I was coming out of vacation mode, so I was paying only glancing attention to some of this. Bad excuse. I think he was. And by the way, Chuck Todd out for some weird reason. Kristen Welker of NBC. Could they have given that job to another white guy? Did no white guys need to apply? And Kristen Welker, whatever. She's talented. She'll be fine, I'm sure. Anyway, Joe Manchin floated the notion of an independent candidacy. Just stop it. All independent candidacies are a waste of time for the most part. I'll tell you what Joe Manchin ought to do when we return. Mark Davis in for Dennis. Stick around. So, Joe Manchin floating the idea of an independent candidacy, and it would seem like a fairly natural environment for a Democrat who's just not as crazy liberal as his party seems to be. But what a complete invitation to obscurity. What I would far, far love more is for Joe Manchin, or let's say Kyrsten Sinema, who similarly seems to be quite, well, she's an independent now. She ain't going to run as a Democrat. So let's have Joe Manchin run as an actual Democrat. Because, because there have to be millions of Democrats, and I don't know if it's 1 million or 20 million or anything in between, of Democrats, and they're not all 80, who crave the way Democrats used to be. Center-left on most issues, but still comfortable talking about God. Center-left on some issues, but you know how many genders there are. Center-left on some issues, but you believe the country might actually need a border. Stuff like that. Center-left, but you don't believe that oil is the devil's work. So I would be fascinated by a Joe Manchin actual Democrat candidacy. Of course, all the Democrat candidacy avenues are shut down in the moment, except for the folks who want to be nervy enough, like RFK Jr., to run, even though Joe Biden is. Which takes me back to what I asked you at the beginning of the hour. Is Biden actually running? Is Joe Biden actually going to be running? Right now, there's so many people who are saying that he's just not. No, let me kill this last minute. We'll carry all these calls into the next hour. 1-8-PRAGER-776, 1-8-PRAGER-776, or shoot something to me on Twitter at Mark Davis, M-A-R-K Davis. It's tempting to say, because he's not just 80, he's an old 80. One of the, Hugh Hewitt this morning said Trump is a young 76. He's about to be, Trump's birthday is in 9 days, right? He's about to be a young 77, and Biden is a very old 80. This just can't happen, right? Democrats know this can't happen. Not just because of the cognitive decline and physical challenges that Biden faces now. He's not going to be able to campaign like a normal person. And we're talking about him being in office until he's flipping 86 years old. I know who's out of Iowa, Chuck Grassley. What's Chuck Grassley? 105 now? He tweets like a teenager. He's 80. I think he's about to be 90 or something like that. And just won re-election. He's got his marbles. He might be on a treadmill every day. I don't know. But that ain't Biden. So who do we get? He's at some point, is he trying to freeze the field and then pop out in March like LBJ did in March of 68? And that's what, of course, elevated the whole Bobby Kennedy, Eugene McCarthy, various other candidacies. Like, whoa, we don't have an incumbent? Let's get in there. And there are a lot of Democrats who would probably like to do that. But who can make a case that they're anything resembling a success? Mark Davis in for Dennis. Stick around. A lot more to come. As he will often do, Elvis sets the perfect tone. Suspicious minds. Does that work in today's environment? Goodness gracious me. All right, a couple of things to set up the following and final hour. of the Dennis Prager Show. Mark Davis filling in from Big Thriving DFW. We have a Big Thriving Happy Talk show in the morning each day on 660 AM. The Answer, the Salem Media Group property in the conservative talk world. Whatever town you're listening in, welcome and thank you. Appreciate you being here. You can stay hooked up to me at Mark Davis on Twitter, M-A-R-K Davis. And, of course, the best way to connect here with the program, no matter who's hosting it, is 1-8-PRAGER-776, 1-8-PRAGER-776. And, of course, all things Prager are found at DennisPrager.com. Dennis is off gallivanting around the world with that listener cruise, and they're having a great time, and he's having a great time. And I, for one, am having a great time slinging hot topics with you. Let me tell you what we've done so far, and then I want to add one thing. Well, maybe more than one, but there's one particular front of mind thing that I want to offer up to you. So far, we have trod the turf of the 2024 political battles, because there was Nikki Haley last night on CNN. There's so much to recommend her as a person, as an official, she's a woman of great accomplishment and consequence. Served the country well, served Trump well as UN ambassador during his tenure. Interestingly, on the town hall stage last night, didn't so much come after Trump, because where does that get you? Instead chose to come after DeSantis. And you're going to see a lot more about this. You've seen Vivek Ramaswamy was on Fox News right now. I'm looking at him. I think Vivek is on the shopping channel later on today. He will show up wherever there are microphones. And by the way, that's what a hardworking candidate does. I love the guy. Might he be running mate material? Maybe. We'll see how this all goes. But Vivek's coming after DeSantis, and Nikki Haley was coming after DeSantis, because your best bet. I mean, DeSantis himself may not be able to topple Trump. So the best anybody else can hope for is to topple DeSantis. In other words, to be the one person left on the debate stage. If we have one-on-one debates when there are two folks left, they probably won't, to be left standing in the battleground. Once we are at April, May, let's call it May. Once we're at May, we will probably have only two people left. And it may not take that long. But let's say it's May of 2024. There'll be two people left in the Republican race. One of them will be named Donald Trump. The other will be named something else. Right now, odds are it's DeSantis. Odds change. Things change. DeSantis may stumble. Somebody else may be so stellar and brilliant. And I got to tell you, about a week and a half ago, I had a chat with Larry Elder. And I highly recommend having a chat with Larry Elder, as many of you did during his years of service here on this very radio network, and prior to that across all kinds of talk shows, both in Los Angeles and around the country. I love Larry. Larry's been a friend of mine for a long time. And in analyzing a race, there's something, it's a challenge. Locally here in Texas, there are all kinds of people running all the time who are actual friends of mine. And I have a job to kind of put a pin in that and set it aside and not have that color the objectivity of my analysis. So as I began to fathom the notion of a Larry Elder presidential run, I thought, okay, I love Larry. I think Larry is brilliant. Larry's just a hero to me, both in this industry, and his run for California governor was fantastic. He did better than anybody thought he was going to do. So, okay. And so as going into my actual conversation with Larry, I said, all right, let me treat him. We're friends, but let me treat him like I would any other presidential candidate. That's the best thing I can do in order to assess him as I would any other candidate. Let's ask him questions like any other candidate. So I did. And 12 minutes later, to the surprise of no one, Larry's answers had been so good, so inspiring, so energetic, so on point, so brilliant. I'm like, dude, why not? Why not? And by the way, is it elderforpresident.com? Do it. Listen, I'm not sitting here telling you to go vote for Larry for president months from now. Do whatever you want to do. But here's the criterion I was talking about in looking at Chris Christie and various other people who are getting into the race. Mike Pence, the governor of North Dakota. Really? And God bless Doug Burgum. Wonderful man, I'm sure. Lovely state, I'm sure. But what? I mean, the governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem, is a rock star, and it don't make no point for her to get in there either. So, which there's little word that she is, but there might be running mate potential there. But God bless Governor Burgum. Who got with him? What's that even about? So, but my point about getting into the race is if you literally have no chance of getting the nomination, there's a reason I'm willing to not just tolerate you, but perhaps welcome you. And that is, you ready? Do you make the race more interesting? Do you make the debate stage more interesting? And in Vivek Ramaswamy's case, that's a definite yes. In Tim Scott's case, no. In Chris Christie's case, I think it's a yes because he's an interesting guy. In Mike Pence's case, shoot, no. In Larry's case, and this is where I'm sending you to elderforpresident.com, throw him $5. Isn't it worth the entertainment value just to have Larry on the debate stage? And I don't mean that dismissively, entertainment value. I'm entertained by all of this, so it's good that I do this for a living. But I think what you have to have is 40,000. And it's weird, in a country of 330 million, you might think 40,000, I could get that walking around the neighborhood. Oh yeah? Try. Try. It's hard. And I think you have to have 1% in the polls. Hey, 1% in the polls ain't easy in a country of 330 million, right? And where more and more people are running every day. So let's get Larry to 1% in the polls. Just tell a pollster you like him, whatever you want to do there. But throw him a couple of bucks at elderforpresident.com. Larry on the debate stage, even if Larry's chances of getting the nomination are only slightly higher than my own, it's a better debate stage with Larry on it. It's a better debate stage with Vivek on it. So why not, man? Let's see how this all goes. And we get lectured a lot that they say never. Okay, I'll say a never right now. Doug Burgum will never be president of the United States. Oh, that's terrible. He's probably still a young man. He will never achieve the nomination this year. Or this coming season in 2024. The governor of North Dakota. What the heck is going on there? Anyway, they say never, and we get lectured sometimes by folks who say that the only thing certain is change. And that's true. And that all kinds of things can change. And that's true. But right now, it is a hard argument to say that somebody other than Trump and DeSantis will be the last two standing. Trump ain't going anywhere. I think we've determined that. And as for DeSantis, he's kind of a golden boy right now, deserves to be. He's awesome governor of Florida. He's great. He seems to present with exactly the right kind of skill set to give us the Trump-style policies all conservatives miss in a package that might have a better chance of winning. That's his best argument. DeSantis' best argument is, You miss Trump policies? Guess what? I do too. But guess what? But he can't win and I can. And Trump's best argument is, instead of bagging on DeSantis like an angry 10-year-old, say, look, he's a great governor of Florida. I love him. You love him. I love him. He's great in Florida. But he's an unknown entity. Can he handle Kim Jong-un? I did. Can he run the United States in terms of wise America first foreign policy? He could say that he would try, but guess what? I did it. You saw me do it, and I can do it again. There, no charge. The Mark Davis Campaign Consultancy, and that's what these guys ought to be doing. And I think there are strong points that they can both make, meaning Trump will not fall. I don't believe that DeSantis will stumble. I don't know that he will gain on Trump, but I don't think he'll stumble. So all these other folks, I just don't know. I don't know, but you tell me what you think. 1-8-Prager-776. Got a lot to say about a lot of other things, too. And we're going to your calls next on The Dennis Prager Show. Stick around. It's The Dennis Prager Show. Here on a Monday, 5th of June, 2023, Mark Davis filling in for Dennis. I'm going to hop to a call here and intersperse some calls in with other things that I still wanted to get to today. Have you heard about our friends at Chick-Fil-A? Love me some Chick-fil-A, both in terms of chicken and beliefs. Good chicken, good Christian, solid foundation behind their corporate ethos. So love me some Chick-fil-A. So somebody thought they were breaking news a few days ago when they said, "Oh my gosh, look what we found at Chick-fil-A. A vice president for DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion." Cha 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 cha. And all of a sudden, everybody's hair's on fire. I got a thought or two about that. I'll share it here in a moment. 1-8-Prager-776. We are in just down the road, Fort Worth. Rhett, Mark Davis in for Dennis. Happy Monday. How are you?
Hey, Mark. Thank you so much for taking my call. Mark, I'm out and about all day during the week, and I notice a lot of people not working. And I don't know if they realize, but what they are actually doing is they are selling their freedom. They are selling their freedom. I think somebody needs to come up with a bumper sticker that says either don't sell your freedom or yours and my freedom, get a job. Because what they need to realize is, first of all, again, they're selling their freedom, but whatever the government given, the government can take it away. And all they're doing is they're allowing themselves to be controlled by the government. And it's hurting. They think, oh, this is cool, but it's really hurting them, and it's hurting all of us.
Of course it is. Of course it is. So, since I'm sufficiently intrigued, and I think I kind of know, but let me have you assemble it for me. When you say that when someone is inert, when somebody is just willfully unemployed, just lollygagging around, that they are, quote unquote, selling their freedom. Tell me exactly what you mean.
Well, they're getting paid by the government to sit home and do nothing. I mean, so what they're doing is they're exchanging our freedom for money. That's
listen, there are a ton of people sitting on the couch right now. Are you sort of talking specifically about people who are on welfare, people who are on some type of government sustenance?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, look at all the jobs in the job market. I mean, all of these people could find a job if they wanted to, but they're choosing to stay home and watch television. They are selling their freedom. That's exactly what they're doing. And they may not realize it. They may think, hey, this is cool. This is really cool. But the Democrats, all they want to do is create dependence. So they're allowing themselves to be dependent upon the government. And
correct.
All they have to do is
willfully so. Yep.
Get off their
and
butt,
willfully so. Well put, and thank you. There are a few snapshots of America that you think about taking back 50 years or 100 years. Take back 100 years and show people landing on the moon, their heads would explode. Oh, what kind of deviltry is that? But other portraits, other snapshots, go back to, and I know this is a very boomer thing to do. Maybe it's a Gen X thing to do too. My parents have both been gone since 1998. My dad was 20 years Air Force and then was in the private sector, was an office manager for an educational consulting firm in Alexandria, Virginia. Too much information. And then for about the last 10 years of his working life, you know what he did? He sold chain link fence for Montgomery Ward, and he was never happier. Traveling all over the place, meeting people, filling their chain link fence needs in the suburban Maryland of the early 1970s. He was happy as a clam, and he worked hard every day, and he instilled in me the value of doing that. And my wife and I are instilling into our kids the value of doing that too. And are we uncommon in that regard? I know you're trying. Well, listen, people listen. Maybe the Dennis Prager Show audience is the bad place to deliver a scolding, so I'm not. I'm sort of talking about these people over there who are allowing this, who are permitting an entire generation of young people to rot in the glow of gaming screens. Have you seen? Oh, I took a screenshot of something. took a screenshot. I did not intend to necessarily be able to use this so quickly, but here we are. This is the Pew Research Center. 21-year-olds, have I got time for this? 21-year-olds and major milestones. So think of, and I have a 20-year-old right now, and God bless him, he's great. Thanks for asking. I have a 31-year-old daughter, too, so she's fantastic. Thanks for asking. 21-year-olds and major milestones. And this isn't going back 60 years. This isn't going, hey, in my day, back when Eisenhower was president, and I was born when Eisenhower was president. No, this is just 1980. It's 1980. It's when Reagan was elected. You ready? How many 21-year-olds have a full-time job? Now, that's 21. Hey, maybe you're a senior in college. Understand, good excuse. How many 21-year-olds have a full-time job? In 1980, it was 64%. Okay. All right. Did I have a full-time job when I was 21? I graduated from college that age, and so yes, by the time I was 22, I did. The year 2021, percentage of 21-year-olds with a full-time job, 39%. We are so screwed. Financially independent. Number of 21-year-olds who are financially independent. Now, that's asking a lot. Financially independent at 21? I was. And I wasn't special. I was 21 in 1978. Anyway, financially independent. 1980, 42%. Okay. Financially independent. That's a long bridge to cross. What do you think it is roughly today, 2021? 25%. I may actually be surprised that it's 25% of 21-year-olds who are financially independent. Home away from your parents. Get ready. Home away from your parents. Now, here's where the college asterisk, or as they say in Maryland, asterisk, might kick in. In 1980, it was 62%, and in 2021, it was 51%. That is only, you know what they should have asked? Ask that of young folks who are 27. Do you know how many flipping 27-year-olds I know still live with mom and dad, or know of? Still, whatever you want to call it, failure to launch. We are so screwed if this doesn't turn around, which is why on the talk shows that I host, be they local or national, I'll always spend plenty of time talking about, good hardcore nuts and bolts politics. I love it, love it, love it, love it. Policies, borders, the law, this, that, campaigns. Love it, love it, love it. But if you go through life and you're not concerned about the culture, and I don't mean Disney versus, I mean the culture, the way we're raising our kids, the kind of values we're instilling in them. And I don't even mean political values. The values that say, find somebody of the opposite sex, go to college or get a job and make something of yourself, make some money, get a house and go live life and start having some kids, being fruitful and multiplying. All of those have just been dashed against the rocks. Mark Davis, in for Dennis. Be right back. Dennis Prager Show, Monday, June 5. Welcome. Mark Davis filling in. Let me give you my Chick-Fil-A story here, and I'll actually be writing about this. I've sat here and told you all these radio things that I do, but here's where to find me in print. I do a lot of columns for Newsweek. Look at newsweek.com and search the columnist for Mark Davis. Also, Star Telegram, right west of me here in Fort Worth, but also across the McClatchy chain of newspapers, Miami Herald, Sacramento Bee, Kansas City Star, other places like that. So I write for them as well. And I'm cobbling together some things for a column that'll be out here this week that's about our friends at Chick-Fil-A. So against the following backdrop, everybody's political lenses are focused sharply on corporate America these days, and everybody's eyes are peeled for the spread of DEI initiatives, diversity, equity, inclusion, right? Liberals stand ready to scold companies who fail to add such a department, and conservatives, we're all ready to pounce against those who do. So the reasons are simple, because we on the right prefer a focus on merit without regard to race or other, irrelevancies, while the left clings to identity politics. So from Disney to Bud Light, headlines are filled with stories of companies that are properly paying a price as we conservatives seek marketplace punishment for woke activism. But what happens, here's a curveball, What happens when the storyline involves the discovery of a DEI officer at one of America's hallmark conservative brands? Reactions are expectedly conflicted. And the story rolled out kind of sloppily, too, which didn't help anybody. Go back to May 29th. There's a political strategist named Joey Manarino, and he tweets, Chick-fil-A just hired a DEI vice president. Just hired. Not really. The gentleman in question, Eric McReynolds, has actually had that title for Chick-fil-A since November of 2021, and he was actually executive director of that department since July of 2020. That is nearly 3 years, at the very least, that Chick-fil-A, one of America's trademark family values brands, has had a DEI office. So it's not a new story, but it is different. The various companies, the other companies that have been recently outed for over-the-top woke posturing, they've been uniformly aligned with liberalism. You can always find video posts of some stupid manager somewhere saying, we're just so pleased to offer you, Dylan Mulvaney to help us sell Bud Light. How'd that work out? Or Disney telling you there's going to be, new, trans Ariel or whatever's going to happen in their next film. So what is Chick-fil-A doing swimming in the DEI pool? So I went to the Chick-fil-A DEI webpage. So there's a smiling picture of Mr. McReynolds, and the company proudly touts its commitment to being better at together and fostering, more air quotes, a culture of belonging. Okay. They describe recruitment partnerships with the Women's Food Service Forum, the National Black MBA Association, and the Association of Latino Professionals of America. They also have things that are called community groups, things that employees at Chick-fil-A can join. Some of them are called Women in Business. Another one is the Black Employee Resource Group. Good for them. This openness extends to the supply chain necessary to operate the most popular fast food chain in America, which Chick-fil-A remains for 8 straight years, even under all this woke pressure. Quote from their website again, we are developing mentorship and partnership opportunities for minority-owned businesses and are working to provide additional support through the launch of several supplier diversity efforts. Nowhere on the page does it suggest that male Chick-fil-A employees can become women, or vice versa. Nowhere on the page does it suggest that America is a racist hellhole in dire need of modern atonement in the form of racial revenge policies. Chick-fil-A's brand of DEI is a testament to the company's efforts to operate in a manner that displays genuine fairness and openness toward customers and employees without thwarting the Christian values set forth by their founder, Truett Cathy, back in 1947. Diversity should mean welcoming all employees who fit that value structure at Chick-fil-A while welcoming customers without regard to really anything except do you have money to buy chicken. It should not mean scrapping merit as a hiring criterion in order to meet some arbitrary racial standard. Equity should mean equality of opportunity, not rigging the landscape to yield equality of result. Inclusion should mean welcoming employees who meet the qualifications for each job without flouting the company's principles. And this is a two-way street. There was a liberal Texas baker who punted a really vocally conservative employee who didn't exactly fit in a shop festooned with rainbow flags and Beto O'Rourke campaign signs. Sometimes the chemistry just doesn't work. So let me, I'll finish this up in a minute because Chick-fil-A may be doing DEI right. Mark Davison for Dennis. Be right back. It is the Dennis Prager Show, the waning segments here, this one and one more. Let's see what we can make of it, shall we? Mark Davison for Dennis here from, I'm not at 660 AM, The Answer in Dallas-Fort Worth. That's downstairs. I'm upstairs in the special room we have where I can come up the bat pole, which is tricky, and come fill in for Dennis. Grateful for these surroundings because it means I get to hang out with you. At 1-8-Prager-776. So I was establishing the point I'll be making in a couple of columns this week. Fort Worth Star-Telegram and various other papers across the McClatchy chain, which I'm proud to write for, that yes, we did indeed find a DEI vice president at Chick-fil-A, Mr. McReynolds. And everybody's freaking out. It's like, oh, do we need to boycott Chick-fil-A? Shh. They may just be having a little fun. Well, I don't mean have a little fun with us, but they may have walked the line with a bit of a masterstroke. Here's the way. If you go to the Chick-fil-A DEI webpage. And I just told you all it is just, it's about being good people and having a bunch of things that are friendly and receptive to minority inclusion in employment and the supply chain. Just all of it. Just basically being a good corporate citizen. At no point do they talk about America being a racist pit that needs to atone for past sins. At no point do they say, hey, guys working for Chick-Fil-A, you can become a woman. At no point do they engage in any of that usual DEI nonsense. So what seems to have happened at Chick-fil-A is the establishment of an office that may carry the DEI label without the accompanying leftist dogma that has marked the tilt of so many other companies. So you might wonder, why would Chick-fil-A risk drawing negative attention by creating a DEI department in the first place at all? Maybe it's because this brief dust-up they're going through right now is nothing compared to the firestorm that might await them if they didn't have a DEI guy. This way they can say, yep, we got a DEI guy. Here he is. Here's the webpage. Get off our backs. In what may prove a masterstroke of marketing, Chick-fil-A is able to say we have a DEI division wholly without the repellent radicalism that has caused rampant self-inflicted wounds at Disney, Anheuser-Busch, Nike. Now, my favorite thing for companies to do when they say, hey, do you have a DEI person, a DEI office, to say, no, we ain't wasting that money. We ain't even wasting the ink on printing those business cards. We're just good people. Judge us by what we do, whom we hire, how we go about it, and go take a hike. That's my favorite thing. But if somebody wants to play the game a little bit and say, you know what, let's not have people picketing out front. If the question is, do we have a DEI department? The answer is yes, but we run it this way. We run it the Chick-fil-A way. No company needs some ill-defined office or executive to practice simple fairness and decency. DEI, as widely practiced today, often violates those values. But companies don't have to buckle under pressure from today's woke bullies either. If they feel they need to throw the mob a bone, the Chick-fil-A example proves that a company can put DEI on some office door and some business cards and actually define those terms, the D, the E, the I, diversity, equity, inclusion, in terms that abbreviation, that more truthfully, that defines those words more truthfully. So get off Chick-fil-A's back. Don't worry about that. 1-8-Prager-776, and we are in San Diego. Aaron, hey, Mark Davis in for Dennis. How are you?
Doing well, Mark. I think that you're giving them a little too much credit, though, because around 2019, 2020 is when they stopped making donations to Salvation Armies and other groups that the alphabet people didn't like. So it's not just a little bit of window dressing.
You're right. Their track record does contain the occasional hiccup. They have not been completely immune. You are correct. Okay, hey, if that's it, that's it. All right, gives me a chance to get to it. Sometimes the stunning silence just means we've covered everything the guy wanted to cover. I got a minute or two left. 1-8-Prager-776. You want to get in the last minute or two of this segment or the very brief final segment that we have. So to sum up some things, though, that we've addressed. Oh, you know what? Actually, instead of summing stuff up that I've said already, wow. A little bit of breaking news. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer says he is going to begin the process of holding FBI Director Christopher Wray in contempt of Congress, despite viewing and being briefed by Bureau officials on the subpoenaed document alleging Joe Biden is involved in some criminal bribery scheme. The FBI brought the document in question. It's an FBI-generated form called an FD 1023. That allegedly describes a $5 million criminal scheme involving then Vice President Joe Biden and a foreign national, that's vague, relating to the exchange of money for policy decisions. Brought that to Capitol Monday for Comer and ranking member Jamie Raskin, Democrat of Maryland, to review in one of those secure SCIF rooms after a back and forth between committee Republicans and the Bureau over whether it was in compliance of the subpoena. The FBI initially offered to allow Comer to review the document at FBI headquarters, but amid Comer's threats to hold Chris Wray in contempt of Congress, the Bureau offered additional accommodations. Christopher Wray is a snake, all right? And listen, sometimes things can change. Companies can change. You'll hear many, Nikki Haley was talking on the CNN thing last night, oh, Ron DeSantis used to be so cozy with Disney. He helped them in so many ways. Well, yeah, that's before Disney jumped into the lake of fire. Christopher Wray, Trump brought us Christopher Wray. He's better than Comey. Anybody's better than Comey. And it took some time for Christopher Wray to show his stripes as the snake that he is. Speaking of local folks and national folks who are I'm proud to count as friends, Texas 6th District, easy for you to say, 6th District Congressman Jake Ellzey had a Q&A with Christopher Wray and asked him, are you concerned about your company's biases? And they said, I said, nah, it's a public problem. They're just not seeing things right. Yeah, we'll see about that. All right, let us take our pause and come back and have a couple of final words, a couple of final calls, and it'll be in everybody's interest to move briskly, including me. So we'll be right back. Mark Davis in for Dennis. Boys of Simply Red out of Manchester, England. I'm a word person. Not a weird person, a word person. Maybe a weird person. People from Manchester, the adjective for the accent, like Jamie Tart in Ted Lasso. God, was that? I came back from vacation. Well, first of all, why are Mancunian, right? I guess Manchesterian is too hard to say. It's a Mancunian accent. Keela. Anyway, I came back from vacation, and I wrecked my knee on the sidewalks of Fredericksburg, Texas. I'll bore you with that some other time. All good. I'm fine. Within 24 hours, my wife Lisa and I wrapped up the series finale of Ted Lasso, the series finale of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and the series finale of Succession. I almost couldn't take it. We talk about how much garbage there is in the popular culture, and there is. But we are in a golden age of shows. Succession was awesome. Ted Lasso was a masterpiece. And I can't say enough about Rachel Brosnahan and that crazy cast of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Can't recommend all of them highly enough. All right, stop yammering, talk show boy. Let's see if we can put some folks on for a few seconds of pop here. On the Chick-Fil-A thing or anything else, we're in Pittsburgh. Trevor, hey, Mark Davis in for Dennis. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. I support Chick-fil-A. I stopped donating to the Salvation Army specifically when they came out with their, what was it called, the white Americans need to stop being colorblind. I've been in the military. I believe everyone should be treated equally. So, I think the Salvation Army did a real disservice to themselves.
It's a good point. Thank you for the brevity. Whether it's Chick-fil-A or the Salvation Army itself, the eyes are peeled. Every conservative outfit or every values-based outfit should know that everybody's eyes are peeled for consistency, and you waver from it at your peril. We are in Sacramento. Gene, Mark Davis, in for Dennis. Welcome. You got about 30 seconds. Take them.
Hi. I don't have a business, but if I did, my DEI department would mean doing everything intelligently instead of all this leftist nonsense.
Yes! We have a winner! Oh, I can't think of a better doing everything intelligently. Call of the day at the end of the day. I salute you, sir. That is well played. All right, speaking of things that have been done well today, I hope I've muddled through somehow. Appreciate all y'all in tolerating me. Mark Davis on Twitter, at Mark Davis, M-A-R-K Davis. And let's talk a little bit about my buddy Sean McConnell, who puts all this together and sends me all the stuff to do this. Zach, thank you for a superb call screening and all the video production folk that make it all happen there on the Salem News channel. God bless our country and our troops and our families. Hold it together. Keep optimistic. Keep a spring in your step. It's going to be okay. Let's spread the views as best we can. And great to be able to be here to spread them on the Dennis Prager Show. I'm Mark Davis. Follow me on Twitter at Mark Davis, M-A-R-K Davis, and I will see you next time they ask. Have a good one.